Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the UES Sovereign, watching the stars through the massive viewing screen. The ship was humanity's pride, a symbol of their place in the galaxy. For 30 years, humans had served alongside dozens of alien species in the Galactic Council. They had fought wars, solved problems, and saved countless lives across the stars. Jake rubbed his tired eyes. He was 45 years old and had spent half his life in space helping aliens with their troubles. The wrinkles around his eyes told the story of every mission, every crisis, every time humanity had stepped up when others could not. "Captain, we're getting another call from the Council," said Lieutenant Amy Chun from her station. She was young, maybe 25, with the kind of bright enthusiasm that Jake remembered having once. "They want to know if we can handle the Zentari situation." Jake sighed. The Zentari Empire was expanding again, threatening 3 smaller species. The Council always turned to humanity when things got complicated. Humans were good at finding solutions that others missed. They were creative, stubborn, and willing to take risks that more cautious species would not. "Tell them we'll take care of it," Jake said, again. The mission briefing took place in the ship's main conference room. Ambassador Lisa Hamilton sat at the head of the table, her gray hair pulled back in a neat bun. She had been negotiating with aliens for longer than Jake had been fighting them. Next to her sat Colonel Ryan Pierce, a military strategist who could plan battles in his sleep. "The Zentari are moving into the Kappa sector," Lisa explained, pointing to the star map. 3 species live there: the Mollans, the Grex, and the Vorthan. All of them are peaceful. None of them have the military strength to stop the Zentari. "And let me guess," Ryan said, "the Council wants us to fix it without starting a war." "Exactly," Lisa nodded. "We need to convince the Zentari to back down while giving the 3 species a way to defend themselves." Classic human diplomacy. Jake had heard this story 100 times before. Aliens had a problem. The Council debated for months. Nothing got done. Then they called humanity, and somehow the humans found a way to make it work. It was always the same pattern. The mission took 3 weeks. Jake led a small fleet to the Kappa sector while Lisa and Ryan worked their magic. They talked to the Zentari leadership, finding out what they really wanted. It turned out they needed new colonies for their growing population. The 3 threatened species had planets they were not using. The solution was simple once you thought about it. The humans arranged a deal. The Zentari would get 2 uninhabited worlds in exchange for protecting the 3 species from other threats. Everyone got what they needed. No one had to fight. It was the kind of solution that made the Council praise humanity's wisdom and skill. Jake had seen aliens literally cry with relief when human negotiators saved their worlds. It felt good to help. It felt good to be needed. The trip back to Council Station Alpha should have been a victory lap. Jake was already thinking about shore leave, maybe a visit to Earth to see his sister and her kids. Amy Chen was excited about getting a commendation for her work on the communication systems. Everyone was happy. That changed when Amy came running to the bridge, her face pale with shock. "Captain, you need to see this," she said, her voice shaking. "I was checking the communication logs and I found something. The Council has been sending encrypted messages. I broke the code." Jake looked at the data pad Amy handed him. What he saw made his blood run cold. The messages were about resolution. 2847 Alpha, a proposal to limit human expansion and place economic sanctions on Earth's colonies. The aliens had been discussing it for months, right while humanity was out solving their problems. When was the vote? Jake asked quietly. 2 days ago, Amy whispered. While we were negotiating with the Zentari. The vote was 847-3. Only. The Altarians, the Kamari, and the Voss abstained. Everyone else voted yes. Jake read through the classified documents that Amy had uncovered. The reasoning was clear. The other species were afraid of humanity's rapid growth and influence. They saw humans as a threat that needed to be contained. The resolution would limit human colonies to their current systems and place heavy taxes on human trade. The worst part was reading the private communications between alien leaders. They called humanity useful but dangerous. They talked about humans like they were a tool to be used and then put away. One message from the Zalari High Command said, "Let them solve our problems for now. We can deal with the human problem later." Jake felt sick. For 30 years he had believed they were building friendships across the galaxy. He had thought the aliens respected humanity, maybe even liked them. Instead, they had been using humans as expendable problem solvers while plotting to limit their future. He called an emergency meeting of the senior staff. Lisa Hamilton read the documents in silence, her face growing harder with each page. "Colonel." Pierce slammed his fist on the table when he finished reading. "We've been fools," Pierce said. "Complete fools? We've been bleeding for people who see us as a threat." "They're afraid of us," Lisa said quietly. "They're afraid of what we might become if we keep growing, so they decided to stop us." Jake thought about all the human soldiers who had died protecting alien worlds. He thought about the scientists who had given their lives to cure alien diseases. He thought about the diplomats who had spent decades building relationships with species who were secretly planning to betray them. "We need to contact Earth," Jake said. "President Blake needs to know about this immediately." The message Jake sent to Earth was short and simple. Mission accomplished. Zentari crisis resolved. Request immediate return to Sol System for emergency. Briefing. We have discovered critical intelligence regarding Council intentions toward humanity. As the UE Sovereign changed course for Earth, Jake stood alone on the bridge, watching the stars. 30 years of service, 30 years of sacrifice, and this was how it ended. The aliens did not want partners. They wanted servants. Amy Chan approached him carefully. "Captain, what do you think will happen when Earth finds out?" Jake was quiet for a long moment. "I think," he said finally, "that the galaxy is about to learn what it's like to solve its own problems." The journey back to Earth took 2 weeks. During that time, more encrypted Council communications were intercepted. The aliens were already planning how to divide up human trade routes after the sanctions took effect. They were discussing which species would take over human peacekeeping duties. They talked about humanity like it was a business they were shutting down, but there was something else in the messages that made Jake smile grimly. The aliens were worried about how they would handle all the problems that humanity currently solved. They had grown dependent on human creativity and willingness to take risks. Some of the communications showed real fear about what would happen if humans stopped helping. "They're about to find out," Jake muttered as Earth appeared on the viewing screen. The blue and white planet looked peaceful from space, but Jake knew that was about to change. Once the human government learned about the Council's betrayal, everything would be different. The galaxy had made its choice. Now humanity would make theirs. As the UES Sovereign entered Earth's orbit, Jake Morrison prepared to deliver the news that would change everything. The age of humanity serving the galaxy was about to end. What came next would be up to the aliens to figure out on their own. President Kevin Blake sat in the emergency session room deep beneath the White House. The room was packed with the most powerful people in human space. Representatives from Mars, Europa, Titan, and dozens of other colonies filled the seats. The air was thick with tension and barely controlled anger. Jake Morrison had delivered his report 3 hours ago. The leaked Council documents were now spreading across human space faster than light-speed communications could carry them. Every human colony, every space station, every ship in the fleet was learning the truth about what the aliens really thought of them. The vote was 847-3, Blake repeated for the 100th time. His voice was steady, but his hands shook slightly as he held the datapad. 47 years of alliance, and this is what we get. They want to cage us like dangerous animals. Admiral Helen Carter stood at the front of the room, her uniform crisp despite the long day. She had been reviewing the military situation since the news broke. "Mr. President, we have forces deployed in 37 different systems. We're providing security for trade routes, border patrols, and peacekeeping operations. If we pull out, there's going to be chaos." Senator Maria Rodriguez from the Mars colony stood up. Her face was red with anger. "Good, let there be chaos. We've been giving our blood and treasure to people who see us as a threat to be contained. Maybe it's time they learned to handle their own problems, the room erupted in voices. Some agreed with Rodriguez. Others worried about the consequences. A few still believed there might be a way to work things out with the council. Blake raised his hand for silence. Admiral Carter, give us the full picture. What exactly are we providing to the galaxy? Carter activated the holographic display in the center of the room. Star maps appeared showing human deployments across known space. We have 12 peacekeeping fleets in active conflict zones. The Koran border alone has 3,000 human soldiers keeping two species from killing each other. We patrol the Silk Road trade route with 47 ships, protecting merchant vessels from pirates. She changed the display to show scientific missions. We have research teams working on 17 different worlds. Our people are leading the effort to cure the vegan plague. We're helping terraform 3 dying planets. We have first contact. Specialists with newly discovered species in 6 different systems. The numbers were staggering. Humanity had spread across the galaxy, not as conquerors but as helpers. They had become the galaxy's problem solvers, the ones everyone called when things went wrong. And what do we get in return? Asked Governor Bill Murphy from the Centauri system. Trade agreements that favor alien species. Technology sharing. That goes one way. And now they want to limit our expansion while we're out saving their worlds. Dr. Patricia Hayes, Earth's chief scientist, had been quiet during most of the meeting. Now she stood up, her voice calm but firm. I've been working with alien scientists for 20 years. I thought we were building something together. But I've been reviewing the research agreements. Every major breakthrough we've shared with them. Every cure we've developed, every technology we've invented. They take it all and give us nothing in return. The room fell silent. Dr. Hayes had always been one of the strongest supporters of alien cooperation. If she was ready to walk away, the situation was even worse than they thought. What about our allies? Asked Representative John Carter from Europa. The Altarians, the Kamari, the Voss, they abstained from the vote? Doesn't that count for something? Jake Morrison, who had been quiet since giving his report, finally spoke. I've been thinking about that. They didn't vote against us. They just didn't vote for the resolution. When your friends are under attack, you don't stay neutral. You defend them. Blake nodded slowly. The ambassador is right. If our closest allies won't stand up for us, then we truly are alone out there. The debate continued for hours, but the outcome was never really in doubt. The evidence was too clear, the betrayal too complete. Finally, Blake called for a vote. All in favor of complete withdrawal from galactic affairs? Every hand in the room went up. The vote was unanimous. The withdrawal began immediately. Blake signed Executive Order 2847, named after the Council resolution that had started it all. All human military forces would return to Sol Space within 6 months. All scientific missions would be terminated. All diplomatic personnel would come home. Captain Sam Wells received his orders while patrolling the Koran border. He was to evacuate all human forces from the disputed region immediately. Sam looked at his orders and shook his head. He had been keeping 2 alien species from destroying each other for 3 years. Without human peacekeepers, the shooting would start within days. Sir, what about the civilians? Asked his second-in-command, Lieutenant Commander Alex Turner. There are millions of people in the cities below. They'll be caught in the crossfire. Sam was quiet for a moment. Our orders are clear. We're to provide humanitarian aid to any civilians who want to evacuate, but we're not staying to fight their war for them. Load up anyone who wants to leave. We're going home. The evacuation of human forces became the largest military operation in human history. Ships that had been patrolling alien space for decades received orders to return to Earth. Scientists working on alien worlds packed up their research and headed home. Diplomats who had spent their careers building relationships with alien species closed their embassies and left. Lieutenant Commander Turner oversaw the recall of the human patrol fleet from the Silk Road trade route. The aliens had built their entire economy around trade routes that humanity protected. Without human ships to stop pirates and raiders, the trade routes would become too dangerous to use. "The alien merchants are panicking," Turner reported to Admiral Carter. "They're begging us to stay. They say the pirates will destroy everything without our protection." Carter's response was cold. "Tell them to ask the Council for help. Maybe the same aliens who voted to limit our expansion can protect their trade routes." Dr. Hayes supervised the most painful part of the withdrawal. Her research teams had been working on dozens of projects to help alien species. The vegan plague research was 90% complete. The terraforming project on Kepler 442b was about to save millions of refugee lives. The first contact protocols they had developed were being used to peacefully meet new species across the galaxy. "We're abandoning people who need our help," Dr. Hayes said to her assistant, Dr. Karen Wright. "The vegan plague will kill billions if we don't finish the cure." Dr. Wright looked at the data showing their progress. "We've been working on this for 10 years. Our people have died trying to solve this problem. And the same aliens who benefit from our research voted to cage us like animals. Let them find their own cure." The galaxy watched in growing alarm as humanity pulled back from every commitment. The Council held emergency sessions, but they could not agree on what to do. Some alien species wanted to negotiate. Others insisted that humanity was bluffing and would return when they realized how much they needed galactic trade. The human withdrawal was conducted with military precision. Every ship, every soldier, every scientist returned to soul space exactly on schedule. The aliens sent countless messages, some threatening, others pleading. All of them were ignored. Captain Morrison, now promoted to admiral, stood on the bridge of the UES Sovereign as it entered Earth's solar system for the final time. Behind him, the last human ships were coming home. Ahead of him, Earth waited, ready to begin a new chapter in human history. "Admiral, we're receiving transmissions from the Council," reported Amy Chun. "They want to negotiate." Morrison looked at the blue planet growing larger on the screen. "Delete them," he said simply. "We're done talking." As the Great Withdrawal concluded, humanity sealed their borders and went quiet. The galaxy had made its choice. Now it would have to live with the consequences. The first shots were fired 3 days after the last human ship left the Koran border. Captain Jake Morrison, now commanding the Outer Solar System Defense Fleet, sat in his command chair watching the long-range sensors. The display showed bright flashes of weapons fire in a system that was now 50 light-years away. "The Koran and the Velthi are at it again," reported his communications officer, Lieutenant Danny Foster. "Full-scale battle fleets this time, no more border skirmishes." Jake had expected this. For 3 years, human peacekeepers had stood between these two species, preventing them from destroying each other over a handful of worthless asteroid fields. The aliens had been happy to let humans die to keep their peace. Now they would have. "To handle their own problems? Any distress calls?" Jake asked. "Hundreds," Danny replied. "Both sides are screaming for help. The Koran are asking for military support. The Velthi want us to send medical ships. The civilian populations are begging for evacuation." Jake was quiet for a moment. Part of him wanted to help. 3 years of keeping the peace had made him care about the people caught in the middle. But then he remembered their council documents, the secret votes, the plans to limit human expansion while using human blood to solve alien problems. "Delete the messages," he said finally. "We're not the galaxy's police force anymore." The war between the Koran and Velthi spread quickly. Within 2 weeks, it had pulled in 4 more species. The Galactic Council called emergency sessions, but they could not agree on what to do. The Zilari offered to send peacekeepers, but their warrior culture made them terrible at keeping peace. They wanted to pick a side and fight, not stand between enemies and prevent war. The Altarian Republic tried to mediate, but their slow decision-making process meant they were always months behind the fighting. By the time they decided to send help, the war had moved to 3 new systems. The Silk Road trade route became a nightmare within weeks. Without human patrol ships, the Krex pirates grew bold. They attacked merchant vessels, captured entire crews for slave trading and set up bases on asteroids that had once been protected by human forces. Captain Lucy Stone, commanding the border monitoring station at the edge of human space, watched the reports with growing amazement. "The pirates have taken over the entire central sector," she reported to Admiral Carter. 12 major trade routes are completely shut down. The aliens are losing trillions in commerce. The various alien species tried to protect their own ships, but it was hopeless. The Molans had cargo vessels but no warships. The Grecs had fighters, but no long-range capability. The Vorthan had defensive weapons but were too peaceful to hunt pirates. Each species could protect their own systems, but the space between systems belonged to the pirates now. "The merchant guilds are sending us messages every day," Stone continued. "They're offering us huge payments to come back and patrol the routes. Some of them are offering to pay us more in 1 year than the Council paid us in 10. Carter smiled grimly. "Tell them to ask the Council for help. I'm sure the same aliens who voted to limit our expansion will be happy to risk their own ships." Protecting alien trade? The scientific consequences were even worse. Dr. Patricia Hayes, now working on Earth's new research projects, received desperate communications from her former alien colleagues every day. The vegan plague research had completely stopped without human insight into biological adaptation. The alien scientists were smart, but they thought in straight lines. They could not make the creative leaps that human researchers used to solve impossible problems. "The death toll is climbing," Dr. Hayes reported to President Blake. "The plague has reached the Altarian core worlds. Without the cure we were developing, it could kill billions." Blake looked at the casualty reports. The numbers were staggering. "Do we have enough research to finish the cure ourselves?" "We do," Dr. Hayes replied. "We could probably have it ready in 6 months, but if we develop it, do we give it to them? The same aliens who wanted to cage us?" Blake was quiet for a long moment. "That's a decision we'll make when the time comes. For now, focus on protecting our own people." The terraforming project on Kepler 442b collapsed completely. The alien engineers could not understand the atmospheric processors that humans had designed. Millions of refugees who had been waiting to move to the new world were stuck in overcrowded camps. The 3 species responsible for the project blamed each other while the refugees suffered. Engineer Danny Foster, now working on defensive installations around Earth, intercepted alien communications that showed the growing desperation. "They're calling it the Great Collapse," he reported. "Trade down 60%. Wars breaking out everywhere. The refugee crisis is getting worse every day." The Galactic Council tried to replace human services with their own people, but it was like trying to replace a master craftsman with a committee. The Zilari were too aggressive for peacekeeping. The Altarians were too slow for emergency response. The Molans were too weak for military operations. The Grecs were too selfish, too. Work with other species. 6 months after the human withdrawal, the galaxy was in chaos. The Koran War had spread to involve 8 species. The Silk Road pirates controlled a third of known space. The vegan plague was spreading to new worlds every month. The terraforming projects had failed, leaving millions of refugees homeless. Admiral Morrison received a priority transmission from an old friend, Solari Commander Thekvos. They had served together on a border patrol mission 5 years ago. Morrison had saved Thekvos's life during a pirate attack. The message was personal, friend to friend. "Jake, old friend, I know we wronged you. I voted against the resolution, but I was outvoted by my own council. The galaxy is burning, and we cannot stop it. The Koran War threatens to consume everything. The plague has reached the core worlds. The pirates are attacking civilian transports. We need humanity's help." Morrison watched the message twice, then deleted it without responding. Thekvos was a good soldier and had been a friend, but friendship worked both ways. Where had Thekvos been when the Council was voting to limit human expansion? He had been outvoted, but he had not warned humanity about what was coming. The alien messages became more desperate as the months passed. Some offered huge payments for human help. Others threatened economic sanctions if humanity did not return. A few tried to appeal to human compassion, showing pictures of suffering civilians caught in wars that humans used to prevent. Captain Stone continued monitoring the alien communications from her border station. "The threats are getting more serious," she reported. "The Zentari Empire is talking about forcing us to help. They're saying our withdrawal is a threat to galactic peace." Morrison was not worried about alien threats. Humanity had been the galaxy's military force for decades. They had the best ships, the best training, and the best technology. More importantly, they were united now in a way they had not been for years. Every human knew about the councils. Betrayal. Every human was angry about 47 years of being used and discarded. "Let them come," Morrison said. "They'll learn quickly why the galaxy needed us to solve their problems." The first year after the withdrawal was a disaster for the aliens, but it was the best year in human history. Without the obligation to help alien species, human colonies could focus on their own development. New worlds were settled. New technologies were developed. The human economy grew faster than it had in decades. Colonial Governor Betty Price reported record growth on the frontier worlds. "We're finally building for ourselves instead of giving everything away," she said. "Population is up, production is up, and morale is higher than I've ever seen it. The galaxy burned while humanity thrived." It was exactly what the aliens had never expected. They had thought humanity needed the galaxy more than the galaxy needed humanity. They were learning how wrong they had been. 2 years had passed since humanity walked away from the galaxy. Admiral Jake Morrison stood in the command center of New Earth Station, humanity's new capital in the Outer Rim. Through the massive windows, he could see the construction of 3 new battleships, their hulls gleaming in the light of a distant star. The communication board lit up with another urgent message from alien space. Morrison did not even look at it anymore. His aide, Commander Sarah Mitchell, handled all the desperate calls from the galaxy. "Another message from the Galactic Council," Mitchell reported. "They're offering us full membership, equal voting rights, and a seat on the Security Council if we come back." Morrison almost laughed. 2 years ago they voted to cage us like dangerous animals. Now they want to give us equal rights. What changed their minds? "The casualty reports," Mitchell replied grimly. "The Koran War has killed over 2 billion. People, the vegan plague has spread to 30 systems. The pirate raids have shut down half the galaxy's trade routes. They're desperate." Morrison turned away from the window. Humanity had built New Earth Station in just 18 months, using technology that had advanced beyond anything the galaxy had seen. Without the need to share their discoveries with alien species, human scientists had made breakthrough after breakthrough. Dr. Patricia Hayes entered the command center, carrying a datapad with her latest research results. She looked tired but satisfied. "The new medical systems are working perfectly," she reported. "We've eliminated 3 diseases that used to kill thousands of humans every year. The life extension treatments are ready for testing." "Any word from your old alien colleagues?" Morrison asked. "They send me messages every day," Hayes replied. "The vegan plague has mutated. It's now killing species that were immune before. They're begging me to share our research. They say millions will die without our help." Morrison was quiet for a moment. "And what do you want to do?" Hayes looked out at the shipyards where humans were building their future. 2 years ago, I would have dropped everything to help them. But I remember what they called us in those secret meetings, useful but dangerous. A problem to be solved? Later, let them solve their own problems. The galaxy beyond human space was indeed burning. The Koran War had spread like wildfire, pulling in more species every month. What had started as a border dispute between 2 minor species had become the largest conflict in galactic history. Entire star systems were now battlegrounds. Refugee fleets wandered space looking for safe harbor. Captain Lucy Stone, still commanding the border monitoring station, watched the long-range sensors with amazement. "The Zentari Empire has conquered 6 more systems," she reported. "Without human peacekeepers to stop them, they're expanding faster than ever. The Centauri had been one of the strongest supporters of limiting human expansion. They had argued that humanity was too aggressive, too willing to use force to solve problems. Now, without human forces to check their own expansion, they were proving themselves to be the real aggressors. The irony is incredible, Stone continued. They voted to limit us because they said we were too militaristic. Now they're conquering everything in sight. The pirate situation had grown even worse. The Krex pirates had formed 3 major cartels that controlled different sectors of space. They had turned piracy into a business, taxing merchant ships for safe passage and selling captured crews into slavery. The trade routes that had once been protected by human patrols were now controlled by criminals. Colonial Governor Betty Price visited New Earth Station to report on the frontier colonies. The news was all good. We've established colonies in 12 new systems, she reported. Population growth is at an all-time high. Our agricultural output has tripled. The mining operations are producing more rare metals than we know what to do with. Morrison smiled. And morale? Higher than I've ever seen it, Price replied. People are proud to be human again. For the first time in decades, we're building something for ourselves instead of giving everything away to aliens who don't appreciate it. The human economy was booming. Without the massive costs of maintaining peacekeeping forces across the galaxy, humanity could invest in their own development. New technologies emerged every month. Faster ships, better weapons, revolutionary medical treatments, and energy systems that the aliens could not imagine. Engineer Danny Foster had been promoted to head of the new Advanced Research Division. His team was developing technologies that would have seemed impossible just a few years ago. We've cracked faster-than-light communication, he reported excitedly. Real-time conversations across any distance. We've also developed new energy systems that are 10 times more efficient than anything the aliens have. Why the sudden breakthroughs? Morrison asked. Because we're not sharing our research anymore, Foster explained. Before, every discovery had to be given to the aliens. Our best scientists spent their time teaching alien researchers instead of pushing forward. Now we can focus on pure research. The alien messages became more desperate as the months passed. The Galactic Council had fractured into competing groups. The Altarian Republic led one faction that wanted to negotiate with humanity, the Centauri. Empire led another faction that wanted to force humanity to return. A third group, led by the Mollans, wanted to surrender and ask humanity to take over galactic government completely. They're falling apart, Mitchell reported. The Council hasn't been able to agree on anything for 6 months. Some species are making separate peace deals with the pirates. Others are trying to negotiate with the Centauri. The whole system is collapsing. Morrison received a personal message from his old friend, Solari Commander Thekvos. This time, Morrison decided to watch it. Thekvos looked older, worn down by 2 years of constant warfare. Jake, my old friend, I do not expect you to forgive us. We made a terrible mistake. We let fear and jealousy cloud our judgment. The galaxy is dying, and it is our fault. But I am not asking you to save us. I'm asking you to save the innocents. Caught in the middle. The children who are dying from the plague. The refugees who are starving in camps. The civilians who are being murdered by pirates. They did not vote against humanity. They do not deserve to suffer for our mistakes. Morrison. Watch the message 3 times before deleting it. Thekvos was right about one thing. There were innocent people suffering because of their leaders' decisions, but humanity had learned a hard lesson about the cost of helping others. Every time they had stepped in to solve alien problems, they had paid a price in human lives and resources. And in the end, the aliens had betrayed them anyway. The refugee crisis had become the worst disaster in galactic history. Billions of people were homeless, fleeing from wars, plagues, and pirate raids. They traveled in massive fleets, looking for any world that would take them. Most found nothing but closed borders and empty promises. Some of the refugee fleets approached human space, hoping that humanity might take pity on them. Captain Stone watched them on her sensors, huge collections of ships filled with desperate people. Her orders were clear. Humanitarian aid could be provided, but no one entered human space without authorization from Earth. There's a fleet of Vorthan refugees approaching Sector 7, Stone reported. 3 million people, mostly women and children. They're requesting permission to settle in the uninhabited systems near our border. Morrison considered this carefully. The Vorthan had been one of the few species that had not actively supported the resolution against humanity. They had been neutral, which was not the same as being supportive, but it was better than being hostile. Offer them food, medical supplies, and fuel, Morrison decided, but no settlement rights. They can move on to find somewhere else to live. The galaxy had made its choice 2 years ago. Now it was living with the consequences. Humanity had learned to put their own people first, and they were thriving because of it. The aliens would have to find their own solutions to their problems. The age of humanity serving as the galaxy's saviors was over. 5 years had passed since humanity walked away from the galaxy. President Kevin Blake, now in his final term, stood in his office looking at reports from across human space. The numbers were impressive. Human territory had expanded to include 47 star systems. The population had grown by 30%. Technology had advanced more in 5 years than in the previous 50. Outside his window, he could see the construction of New Geneva, humanity's new capital city on the far side of the galaxy. The city was a masterpiece of human engineering, with towers that reached into the clouds and transportation systems that moved people at incredible speeds. It was built with technology that the aliens had never seen and could never copy. Admiral Jake Morrison entered the office, carrying the latest reports from the border stations. He looked confident and relaxed, a different man from the one who had discovered the Council's betrayal 5 years ago. "The quarterly reports are in," he said, placing the datapad on Blake's desk. "All sectors show continued growth and stability." Blake read through the reports with satisfaction. The outer colonies were thriving. The mining operations were producing resources faster than they could be used. The shipyards were building vessels that were generations ahead of anything in the galaxy. Most importantly, there had been no human casualties in military operations for 3 full years. "Any word from the aliens?" Blake asked. "The usual," Morrison replied. "The Galactic Collective sent another formal request for negotiations. They're offering everything they can think of. Full membership, equal representation, trade agreements, technology sharing, even military alliances." The Galactic Collective was what remained of the old council after 5 years of chaos. Half the original. Member species had either been conquered, destroyed by plague, or reduced to primitive conditions by constant warfare. The survivors had formed a smaller, more desperate organization. Blake almost felt sorry for them, almost. "What did you tell them?" "Nothing," Morrison said. "We stopped responding to their messages 2 years ago. Ambassador Wright handles any communication that might affect human interests, but we're not interested in joining their club again." Ambassador Carolyn Wright had replaced Lisa Hamilton as humanity's chief diplomat. Wright was younger, tougher, and had no romantic notions about alien friendship. She had been a junior diplomat during the betrayal and had learned hard lessons about trusting alien promises. Wright entered the office as if summoned by their conversation. She carried herself with quiet confidence, dressed in the simple gray uniform that all human officials wore now. No fancy decorations, no symbols of alien cooperation, just practical, efficient human design. "The collective sent their final offer," Wright reported. "They want humanity to take over galactic leadership completely. They're offering to dissolve their own government and accept human authority over all their remaining territory." Blake and Morrison exchanged glances. This was not what they had expected 5 years ago. The aliens were not just asking for help anymore. They were offering complete surrender. "What's the situation out there?" Blake asked. Wright activated the holographic display in the center of the office. Star maps appeared, showing the current state of galactic civilization. Large areas were marked in red for active war zones. Other areas were marked in black for regions controlled by pirates or completely lawless. Only small patches of green showed stable government. The Koran War finally ended last year, Wright explained. Both species exhausted themselves completely. The Koran homeworld is uninhabitable. The wealthy population is down to less than 1 million survivors. The war zones they created are still too dangerous to enter. She changed the display to show the plague statistics. The vegan plague burned itself out after killing roughly 4 billion people across 30 systems. The surviving populations have developed immunity, but entire civilizations were wiped out. Blake studied the numbers with grim satisfaction. 4 billion dead from a plague that human scientists could have cured. It was a terrible price for the aliens to pay for their betrayal, but it was a price they had chosen when they voted to limit human expansion. The economic situation is even worse, Wright continued. Galactic trade is down to 20% of pre-withdrawal levels. The pirates control most of the major trade routes. The few remaining governments can barely protect their own systems, let alone maintain interstellar commerce. Morrison pointed to a section of the map marked in yellow. What about the Zentari Empire? They were expanding rapidly 2 years ago. Collapsed. Completely, Wright replied. Turns out they were only successful when humanity was keeping everyone else peaceful. Once real wars started, they couldn't handle the competition. Their military was designed for conquering weak neighbors, not fighting. Actual battles against desperate enemies. The irony was incredible. The Zentari had been among the loudest voices calling humanity too aggressive and militaristic. They had voted to limit human expansion while secretly planning their own conquests. When humanity withdrew and real warfare began, the Zentari had proven to be weak and ineffective soldiers. Blake walked to the window and looked out at New Geneva. The city was peaceful and prosperous, full of humans building a future for their own species. In the distance, he could see the spaceports where human ships arrived daily from across their expanding territory. No wars, no plagues, no pirates. Just steady, sustainable growth. They want us to save them again, Blake said quietly. After everything they did to us, they still expect us to fix their problems, Wright nodded. The message from the collective was very clear. They acknowledged their mistakes. They admitted they were wrong about humanity. They begged for forgiveness and asked us to take charge of what's left of galactic civilization. Morrison was quiet for a moment. And what did you tell them? Wright smiled slightly. I told them that humanity appreciates their honesty, but we have no interest in galactic politics. We have found that we are far more effective when we focus on our own development and the welfare of our own people. This had become known as the Wright Doctrine, humanity's official policy toward the galaxy. Limited trade was acceptable. Humanitarian aid in extreme emergencies could be considered. But humanity would never again serve as the galaxy's problem solvers, peacekeepers, or saviors. Blake returned to his desk and picked up a memorial tablet that had been there for 5 years. It contained the names of every human who had died serving alien causes during the 47 years of galactic cooperation. Thousands of names. Soldiers, scientists, diplomats, medical personnel. All of them had believed they were building something worthwhile with alien partners. They died thinking they were helping friends, Blake said. They never knew that the aliens saw them as useful tools to be discarded when convenient. The memorial had become a symbol of humanity's new independence. Not a monument to hatred or revenge, but a reminder that good intentions were not enough. Trust had to be earned and maintained. Friendship required mutual respect and support. Dr. Patricia Hayes had built a garden around the memorial on Earth. It was beautiful but somber, filled with plants from human worlds across the galaxy. Families came there to remember loved ones who had died in alien service. Children learned there about the cost of helping others who did not appreciate the sacrifice. The garden had a simple inscription, carved in stone. They gave their lives believing in friendship. We honor them by never forgetting the price of trust. Morrison stood up to leave. The patrol reports show some refugee ships approaching our borders again. More Vorthan survivors looking for somewhere to settle. Standard protocol, Blake replied. Food, medical supplies, fuel, and directions to uninhabited space outside our territory. We help where we can, but we don't take on other people's problems anymore. As Morrison left, Blake remained alone in his office, looking out at the thriving human city. 5 years ago, the aliens had tried to cage humanity because they feared human growth and influence. Instead, they had freed humanity to focus on their own development. The galaxy had survived without humanity, though scarred and broken. Humanity had thrived without the galaxy, building something better than they had ever imagined possible. Both sides had learned valuable lessons about independence, respect, and the true meaning of alliance. The age of humanity serving others was over. The age of humanity serving themselves had begun, and it was proving to be the best decision they had ever made.